If you think what we're doing in a documentary is trying to find a piece of reality and capture it. I lived through a very fortunate era of documentaries where the BBC and Channel 4 and, would send you off to places because there was a vague thing going to happen. Something will happen if you go there, and stay long enough and capture it, I always looked at films, no matter how believable or how brilliant the acting was in it. I always thought, and I still do think, it could be more real than that. It can be more real. You just have to have another attitude. Documentary leads to a verite, a truthful way of looking at the world. And that it applies best to true stories. So whether, this is a reconstruction of what we knew about 1993, and Wind That Shakes the Barley is an interpretation of a historical thing, a place, a time. But they're all stories. Someone's had to write them. Even if you're making it up as you go, you're still constructing it. And I like the process of construction more than I like the process of documentary. Although I love that. I like cinema better. The greatest thing in the documentary was that you got sent off to different countries. So like you're saying, 50 countries I'd done documentaries in before I even started shooting feature films. So one, you understand humanity, because they were all about humanity. From the Russian space mission to an indigenous tribe. And in 1 year you could have done 5 continents, seen the President of the United States, filmed the Queen of England, and been with peasants in Ethiopia. You just got this huge picture of the world, and I use that as I call it my Rolodex of life, So when I read a script and it goes like a plane and people getting on a plane, well, okay, I've done that. I know what it looks like. As a cinematographer, when you sit on a plane, you get drawn into how the light's changing. Oh, that's really interesting. Now we're banking and then the light's going through. You want to I want to reproduce that when I make a film, and then you get a script that gives you that scenario, so you do it. I think a lot of people have this point of view that documentaries will lead to feature films if I could just make the documentaries more like a feature film. So you may think, and then you have to say, well, what is a feature film? It's like crane shots or dollies, small tracks in on people, beautifully framed, composed, painting with light, and so on. So then you start taking light, and you start taking equipment, and you start taking mini jibs and that kind of stuff with you. I saw it the other way around, because there's another tradition. The films when I look back at those films that inspired me, they didn't seem to be the ones that used that technique. That I saw as a kind of an American Hollywood or Scorsese, kind of thing. I liked the films, but it didn't inspire me. What I was inspired by was Kes and Chunking Express. But the energy was tangible through the lens. You got this kind of energy between what was going on by the actors and the performers and the locations, and then you're getting that energy. And the best way then was we got rid of all that equipment, even got rid of the lights. And I used to travel doing the documentaries with a camera and a zoom lens, small zoom lens. In fact, I used Nikon stills lenses, and they were great because I carried them on a pouch, camera in your hand, sometimes a bag of stock and magazines, and the camera not on Super 16, switch it on and it's running silently, and you capture stuff that way. That's what people recognize. So whether they'd seen my documentaries or they'd seen the dramas that I'd done, which had a documentary feel, people like them, Paul Greengrass, Catherine Bigelow, they come up to you and say, do that thing that you do. And even when I did the Bourne film with Paul, I had to write something for Universal to say what the style of the film would be. Well, obviously, there was a style already given, and it was of my ilk. It was what I can do, and I'm not very good at writing that stuff down. So in the end, I stole from the original documentary filmmakers, and Robert Druid said, fuck the dolly, fuck the tripod, fuck the crane. Just shoot and shoot and shoot. And that seemed to apply as much to the Bourne film as it does to the lowest budget film you can see, And I think it's valid. throughout that entire range. It's not the only way to make a film. It's just a very valid way to make a film. You know? And I try to apply that to the Bourne. Obviously, the stuff everyone loves is the cars being smashed by the second unit. That's great. They do a great job, and it had to be part of that film. Obviously, the people who made that happen are brilliant at doing that. You know, but it's not my skill set. My skill set is trying to capture humanity through the lens. You know.